It is time for What the H. And it involves more Derek Dooley coverage. Yes, we've been having some fun with Derek Dooley ever since we found out he was running for Senate in Georgia, in the state of Georgia. I've always told you guys Derek Dooley picks the worst timing. I broke it down last week why him choosing to run for Senate as a Republican in Georgia in 2026 was dumb timing when he could have run for Senate as a Republican in Georgia in 2022 and maybe would have actually won in 2022 and unseated Raphael Warnock. Choosing to run in 2026 is going to be more of an uphill battle. That's not to say he can't win it, but it was a dumb time to run. I'll just say that. This is the same guy also who took the Tennessee job at the absolute worst time. He just, again, Derek Dooley has the worst timing on a lot of things. Now, with the news going on about Derek Dooley running for Senate, a former player who was dismissed from the team by Derek Dooley when he was head coach has now spoken out. Robert McVall shared a tweet showing clips of Derek Dooley when he was head coach at Tennessee and said, quote, "No wonder we sucked for 10 years. Some of the stories behind the scenes, how he treated GAs, staff, players, and fans. Makes sense he wants to be a politician." It's a shot at him being a politician. DaRick Rogers has commented in response and says, "LOL, you don't even know, brother. No player has had more backdoor nonsense conversations with that man than me. Still, to this day, he needs his spoiled whooped." DaRick Rogers has not really spoken much about Tennessee, it feels like, not made news since he was dismissed from Tennessee way back before the start of the 2012 season. So this is very much a What the H, brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. RickTerryJewelry.com. Where is this all coming from DaRick Rogers at this point? Well, DaRick Rogers, for those who don't remember, was one of the 2 5-stars in Tennessee's recruiting class in 2010, I believe. Or maybe he was the only one. I'm pulling it up. You guys can tell me, but I know DaRick Rogers was one of the 5-stars in Tennessee's recruiting class. The other one might have been, depending on who you looked at, was Juwan James. Juwan James was also in that class, and he was a fringe. Both of them were fringe 5-stars, meaning they were 5-stars on some services and 4-stars on others. But those were the 2 standout ones. And then obviously Justin Hunter and Tyler Bray were in that class. DaRick Rogers was one of the future players for Tennessee, although Justin Hunter became more the go-to guy at Tennessee until Cordarrelle Patterson came. DaRick Rogers was the one that everybody was excited about. His first year at Tennessee, had 11 catches for 167 yards and 2 touchdowns. His second year at Tennessee, Justin Hunter goes down with the season-ending injury. He has 67 catches for 1,040 yards and 9 touchdowns with no Justin Hunter, and also playing with his quarterback, Tyler Bray, being hurt half the season during that time. He's then dismissed from the team, and during the 2012 season, after Justin Hunter and Cordarrelle Patterson were added, he's dismissed from the team, goes to Tennessee Tech, then goes to the NFL, plays 1 year for the Colts in 2013, where he had 14 catches for 192 yards and did have 2 touchdowns. If memory serves correctly, DaRick Rogers was dismissed from the team after failing multiple drug tests. Now, with all that in mind, however you think about Derek Dooley, is it fair for DaRick Rogers to come out and take shots at Derek Dooley now? And the poll question is up. Who do you side with, DaRick Rogers or Derek Dooley? I'm going to tell you guys why I side with Derek Dooley in this situation. And I'm not here to talk about how he treated players and how he was in certain ways. I think a lot of the talk behind Derek Dooley, and I've been very critical of him in certain areas, but I've also been known to be very defensive of Derek Dooley. His meanness to staff and guys like that, you heard the same stuff about Johnny Majors back in the 80s and the 90s. You heard the same stuff about Lou Holtz. Okay? You actually heard the same stuff about Nick Saban, too. When you're winning, you look like you're a tough guy developing people. It's when you're losing, you look like someone who's just bad with people, period. That's what it felt like with Derek Dooley a lot of times. Derek Dooley made a lot of mistakes, but he inherited a really tough situation. Not Josh Heupel's situation, to be fair, but he did inherit a really tough situation. Let's not forget what happened. Derek Dooley took over a Tennessee team in 2010 that was on its third head coach in 3 years, was under investigation by the NCAA, and had its roster depleted by Lane Kiffin kicking off half the former recruits and then taking a lot of his own recruits with him to USC and depleting that recruiting class and future recruiting classes. With the investigation in the NCAA that comes in, Tennessee is very limited on the roster in 2010 and 2011. Then in 2011, Mike Hamilton steps down. Dave Hart comes in. Dave Hart publicly undermines Derek Dooley. I think somewhat sabotages him because he wants to make his own hire. And after Dooley's second year, when they lose to Kentucky, which again, poor coaching job by Dooley that whole season, you see Dave Hart come out and publicly undercut Dooley and say, we're not going to renew contracts for the staff. Everybody leaves. Tennessee doesn't have any money or support to hire the guys they want to hire, which is how you get the Sal Sunseri hire. And then 2012 falls apart because of it. Now, taking all that into account, maybe DaRick Rogers doesn't like the conversations that were had with him. But again, DaRick Rogers didn't have to fail multiple drug tests to get dismissed from the team. He just didn't. That's on him. That's on nobody else. So while Derek Dooley himself may have not been great with people, and there's a lot to criticize there, DaRick Rogers is not the one to speak up. I side with Derek Dooley on this, and it's what the H, again, brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. They want to be your jeweler, looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
The poll question is up. Who do you side with, DaRick Rogers or Derek Dooley? It looks like everybody's disagreeing with me. 86% of you guys side with DaRick Rogers. 14 of you guys side with Derek Dooley. Okay, look. I understand why you feel that way. And I understand how Derek Dooley, overall, you would want to side with DaRick Rogers. Because one of the things that Dooley did that was so annoying was he spoke to you like he was so much smarter than you when he was in the media. And honestly, like, made you feel like you were dumb for asking the question. And then it turns out that Derek Dooley had 3 straight losing seasons in Tennessee. So who is Derek Dooley to talk about anything? I get that. I understand that. But when you talk about DaRick Rogers, again, DaRick Rogers had so many issues on his own that I don't think it's really fair to use DaRick Rogers to come down on Derek Dooley in Tennessee. I think DaRick Rogers had his own issues. Look, we can talk all day, and I will, about whether or not we think something like weed should be illegal and banned in college football or anything like that. But I also have to say that when we're talking about people like DaRick Rogers and when we're talking about Derek Dooley, just because Derek Dooley did a lot of things wrong, and he did a lot of things wrong, does not mean that he's in the wrong with people like DaRick Rogers, okay? That's just not how it is. Now, Dooley obviously had his own mistakes. There's the whole 13 men on the field against LSU that cost him. But let's think about this, guys. Let's think about how close Dooley was to like actually having success at Tennessee, because he was closer than you think. Derek Dooley, Tennessee, in 2010, if Tennessee doesn't run 13 men on the field against LSU in a substitution mistake, they win that game. If they beat LSU that year, they probably are, yes, they lose the next 2 weeks to Georgia and Alabama, but they're probably hype enough and confident enough that they're able to beat South Carolina, which they lost to by 2 scores, but they probably could have won that game in a different environment. I actually think they would beat South Carolina because they'd be riding so high from the LSU win. At that point, you got a 4-4 team, and then they probably they won their last 4 games, so they finished 8-4. But let's say they lose to South Carolina. Let me just give you guys that. Okay, say they lose to South Carolina, and things go the same way the rest of the way, and they finish 7-5 instead of 6-6. And then the whole North Carolina spiking the ball 13 minutes. Their own substitution penalty doesn't happen. And there's actually a runoff in college football. Tennessee very easily is 8-5 that year. They lost because of a dumb substitution penalty and a dumb rule that was manipulated. Tennessee is very close to 8-5. Say they go 8-5. They probably recruit really well in 2011. And then say they do recruit really well in 2011. Say Hunter doesn't go down against Florida. Tennessee may win that game. They probably beat Georgia. They probably beat South Carolina if Tyler Bray doesn't go down. All of a sudden, you're looking at a team. And then if they won those 3 games, they're probably excited enough to beat Kentucky. All of a sudden, what was a 5-7 season is 9-3. And they maybe win their bowl game and go 10-3. Dave Hart can't undercut the staff. So they bring everybody back. And Justin Wilcox is still defensive coordinator. That historically great offense in 2012 is there. And Tennessee, if they had a defense that year, they're beating Florida. They're beating Georgia. They're beating South Carolina. They're beating Missouri. Again, when you're looking at that season, all of a sudden, you're seeing a potential 10-2, 11-1 season, and Dooley may actually have a job still. It all goes back to that first year. It goes back to those 2 fluke penalty games that they lost and the injuries to Bray and Hunter. If those 4 things don't happen, Derek Dooley he might still be coaching at Tennessee. But again, did a lot of things wrong. He deserves to own what he needs to own what he did. I just think that DaRick Rogers talking about Dooley that way when he was the one who got himself dismissed from the team, I think he needs to watch what he's saying. But at the same time, Derek Dooley, bad mistake for him to try to run for Senate this time with Georgia. Again, 2026 is an uphill battle as for a Republican in a purple state. The same way 2022 would be for a Democrat in a red state. This is a Democrat in a purple state. This is just, again, it's a midterm. Midterms usually go the opposite way of whatever party the president is. That's just how things work. So I don't know what Derek Dooley was thinking.